What's this? Naughty Dog is working on a new remake? Huh. Yeah, I'd prefer a new game, but at least they're giving Jak and Daxter another shot.
You know, I've had the idea for a video like this for a while now, but not until recently has this topic felt so darn relevant. Not that it hasn't been relevant before, it feels like it has been for a long time. Whether it's video games, movies, TV shows, or even Broadway musicals, it feels like the entertainment industry at large is obsessed with taking existing titles and just making them again, but slightly different.
We'll limit our discussion today to just video games, you know, because that's sort of my channel's forte at the moment. At least until I take on the daunting task of discussing why every Disney Muppet project ever is complete trash. I will get into it. Just not today. So, here's the thing about game remakes. Arbitrariness? Huh. I would have thought the word would be arbitrarity. I don't know, that just sounds more right.
One of my main gripes with video game remakes is that they're becoming increasingly more arbitrary, i.e., there's no compelling reason for them to even exist. Let's compare and contrast. Here we have Metroid Zero Mission, a remake of the first 8-bit Metroid game on 32-bit hardware that injects more style and story substance into the experience, while also improving the control and level traversal. This remake, I totally get. Metroid is a story-based series, so since the first game in the canon was this, it can be hard to come back to it. Not to mention Zero Mission was made in a time before the Virtual Console, and nothing was backwards compatible with NES cartridges. So in some, if not most cases, players couldn't even access Metroid 1. These are compelling reasons as to why a remake was done in place of a completely original game. But to contrast, what about Conquer Live and Reloaded? Are the graphics more appealing or help realize the original Bad Fur Day vision better? Not really. The original game's characters were so much more expressive, despite being modeled and animated on much weaker hardware. And the more colorful and standard cartoony look helped highlight the hilarious tonal whiplash of having such adult-oriented scenarios and dialogue come from a world and characters that, otherwise, seem to be designed for all audiences. It's the center of the game's identity. Not to mention, Live and Reloaded censored some of Bad Fur Day's jokes, which is weird considering Xbox's output at the time was generally more mature while Nintendo strived for general appeal. The whole remake angle of Live and Reloaded was more than likely tacked on to justify the price, as the project was more than likely primarily focused on the online multiplayer for Xbox Live, which took the place of the original's multiplayer, so there's another strike against it being a faithful remake. And that's obviously come back to bite it in the butt, as those servers are long gone, and all the game has left now is an inferior remake of a cult classic, which can be played alongside most of Rare's library for cheap with Rare Replay.
But hey, I hear you exclaim, those games all came out before I was born, you doom and gloomer boomer.
Nobody says that.
Shut up. The remakes of the Crash Trilogy and Spyro Trilogy are awesome!
You done straw manning?
Yes. I mean, shut up. To you naysayers, I respond.
Stay away from wicked witches throwing fireballs.
I will kill you.
It's fantastic that we got the Crash Bandicoot N. Sane Trilogy, right? It brought Crash back from the dead and sold enough copies to warrant getting a new game all these years later. Right? I don't know, man. I tend to agree with the sentiment shared before by B-Mask and the Oni Plays crew. The N. Sane Trilogy doesn't really translate every idea from the OG titles too faithfully, and really doesn't make up for it in the arts and crafts section. Get it? Grafts, like graphics, but it also sounds like crap. N. Sane doesn't look better than the old games, it just looks like they used modern techniques and assets to uninspiredly literalize everything from the old titles. Whereas the old titles made full use of the limited hardware it had to work with to create characters and environments that felt so alive and weighted. I don't think the N. Sane Trilogy is a bad product, but I feel that it fails as a remake because the games that it set out to improve are better in almost every way with the originals. People may argue that N. Sane was necessary to make way for Crash 4, but I don't know if I necessarily agree with that either. People were clearly already hungry for Crash to return. That's why they bought N. Sane in the first place. Plus, Activision got a totally different team to work on Crash 4. Thank goodness. So it's not even like they reutilized N. Sane's assets in any major way. At the end of all things, N. Sane will only be remembered as its own thing separately from the OG trilogy, either by children who never experienced the OGs, or fans of the OGs who like it because it reminds them of the OGs. It just can't win. Any way you slice it, it's just living in its predecessor's shadow. The same mostly applies to the Spyro Reignited trilogy. Sure, it has a leg up on Insane for actually having an art style, but there are still a lot of elements holding it back from being as charming, memorable, or conversely as fun as the OGs. And that day one patch, whoo boy! Have you heard about how the PS4 has some wacko battery that will one day expire and prevent the console from being able to properly play physical games? And how we've known for a long time that games that require day one patches are also not going to work that well once the servers of those respective consoles are gone? Well, 2/3 of the entire Spyro trilogy is locked behind a day one download. So one day, every PS4 version of the game will be rendered completely useless, and when the Nintendo Switch and Xbox One servers eventually go offline, those copies will also be rendered completely obsolete. So yeah, no. These two examples of remakes done right still read as arbitrary to me. And even modern remakes of IPs that I feel benefit from getting a shot back on store shelves, like Medieval, are still too under-marketed to sell well, thus these companies don't consider giving them new entries. Plus, they don't appeal to fans like me, who just want a new game.
Here's where I would have used another rebuttal from a hypothetical naysayer in the audience if somebody didn't ruin it.
Don't hate me 'cause you ain't me.
What about full-scale reimaginings, Surely they justify their existence through substantially different changes? Well, for me, I just can't help but feel that this practice is maybe just a teeny-weeny bit, lazy.
An awful lot of people have worked tirelessly and continue to work tirelessly on a great, big, AAA reimagining of Final Fantasy VII. And it's no surprise why. The original 6-disc adventure was a smash back in the late 1990s. That audience is all grown up now, and have nostalgic attachments and big fat wallets to be exploited. Some people have voiced concerns and criticisms about the remake, some have praised it for all that it does right, and some are in the middle on it. But speaking as someone whose older brother was a fan of the original, while I personally wasn't as into it as the other games in his PlayStation library, I can maybe understand why people would want a one-to-one remake with more cinematic flair, full voice acting, completely orchestrated soundtrack, etc. But I, for the life of me, cannot understand why a trilogy of games that add a bunch of meaningless padding not present in the original, plus a plethora of new story elements that set out specifically to tell fans of the original to expect twists, while conversely confusing the hell out of new players, would be the direction to take a project that can only succeed if it faithfully apes off the success of an existing project. If you're gonna make that many changes, do a new game! The Resident Evil reimaginings are generally considered to be of a higher quality, but it too fell flat on its face when it got to the third entry. So now people are left to wonder whether or not 4 will follow suit. Which is just ridiculous, may I say? Because Resident Evil 4 is one of the most readily available games of all time, and one of the most beloved Resident Evil games of all time. It really doesn't need to be remade, let alone fully reimagined like the previous 3 games.
Now here comes the part where people go down to the comments, and whether or not they've heard everything I've said up to this point, or agree or disagree with me, they'll just go ahead and say, I want Banjo-Kazooie and Tooie remakes, I want Sonic Adventure remakes, I want Sly Cooper remakes. Guys, why?
Why do we want so many remakes? Why are we asking for more? Because we love the OGs? Well, right, play the OGs. Oh, are the OGs not available on modern platforms? Well then ask for fairly priced ports. Are there glaring issues with your favorite childhood games that make them otherwise hard to come back to? Ask for remasters. I'm not gonna pretend like I'm some morally righteous person who boycotts all remakes as a matter of principle, but I for one really miss the days when it felt like studios championed unique and artistic visions and made games that were a total gamble as to whether or not they would be hits. Nowadays, people seem convinced that if any idea, property, or concept you loved before has any chance of coming back in the modern day with a AAA budget, the company needs to start by remaking the game or series of games that we loved the first time around. I mean, could you imagine a brand new $60 Space Channel 5 game releasing in the year 2021? Probably not, right? It's too weird, too niche, too obscure, too short. But remakes of Space Channel 5 Parts 1 and 2 for $40? Now we're talking! Now there's less risk on the studio's part, and we get to play a game we've presumably already played/paid for before that's available to download on Steam among other storefronts and the secondhand market. What a blessing. Oh, but we just want to support the developers of these games we love. I don't mind double dipping.
Straw Manning's back.
That's fine, that's nice, that's wonderful even. I won't lie, I'd probably pay $40 for a Space Channel 5 remake too. But what are we supporting in that case? More Space Channel 5 games? Nope. More remakes of games we've already played. After the Insane trilogy came out and sold so well, what was announced soon after? Crash 4? Nope, not yet. First we gotta do a CTR remake and Spyro remakes, and I remember there were even people asking for Wrath of Cortex and Twin Sanity remakes. Like, what the hell, guys? Are we really so nostalgia hungry that we don't even want to see properties we're already familiar with try new ideas? I don't want Ape Escape remakes. I want a brand new Ape Escape, tailor-made for the PS5 that convinces me I need to buy one. I don't want F-Zero remakes. I want a brand new F-Zero that makes me go, wow, this is running on my Switch? It's so dense yet runs so smooth. I don't want Banjo-Kazooie remakes. I want a brand new Banjo-Kazooie adventure that's so fun and distinct that I just can't play it on Game Pass and forget about it. I need a physical copy to play on my Xbox. I'm not totally against the idea of remakes in general, but I've gotta say, it's really starting to feel like it's the only thing we get from big studios anymore. Remakes and reimaginings of games that sold well in the past, and iterations on games that will sell well to the end of time, like Call of Duty, FIFA, and Mario. And now we're supposedly getting a remake of The Last of Us? Seriously? When is enough enough?
I think I've made my point. TLDR, remakes feel arbitrary when they do nothing to improve the experience the original provides. Most modern remakes feel that way, and are likely only done as an easy way to make money. It's frankly a little upsetting how many people are okay with this practice, to the point where Sony now thinks it's an okay idea to make a remake of an 8-year-old game that had a sequel a couple months ago. And I talked about all those things a lot. Like, probably 10 minutes worth, right?
Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to my channel for more videos that are like this one. You can also support by commenting down below and sharing on social media. And if you really want to go the extra mile in supporting my content more than YouTube does, you could donate to my Patreon page for as little as $1 a month. Thank you so very, very much for watching. I will see you the next time I see you.